The Valley Current.
Welcome into the Valley Current, because you were nice enough to give me a tour of your castle in Scotland, because I'm visiting Scotland, and you connected with me through a common friend. And I want to thank Caroline Daniels, CEO of ATP, now retired happily. And you're running kind of an interesting operation out of a castle that has some great history called the Turin Castle. And I visited you today with my wife, Dr. Lee Suter, and we had so much fun getting the tour of the castle. And I know you have a low profile, but I suggest you come on the Valley Current just to let people know what you're doing, because there are a select group of people that are interested in doing corporate retreats and the like. And I have to tell you, it's such a darling place. But tell me your journey in getting there, because you didn't start as a person who was sort of interested in buying a castle and turning it into a wonderful corporate retreat kind of operation. How did you get there? Like, what was your journey to get to the point where you're now living and working about an hour and a half by train from Edinburgh, which is, of course, where the Fringe Festival goes on every August, and it's going on right now?
Absolutely. Well, great to meet you. And thanks for coming today. It was just incredible that you made it all happen so quickly. Yeah, a little bit of my story. My husband and I and my family lived overseas for 23 years in Asia, the Middle East, and latterly Cape Town, South Africa. And my husband was offered a job back in Scotland. And I'm not going to lie, I was dragged screaming and did not want to move back to Scotland, to be honest, because I was enjoying my life in Cape Town at the time. But I wanted a project. I've always been an entrepreneur, and I thought, if I'm going to move back to Scotland, let me have some space to do something different. I always like to keep myself busy and think of new ideas, as you can tell after our conversations today. So we purchased Turin, which is also a little bit of a story, but we looked at many castles and around the northeast of Scotland to allow my husband to get to work at the airport and near Aberdeen. And this one just happily ended up being ours. I believe everything happens for a reason. The ones we lost were meant to be lost, and this one just landed. It's sitting right behind me, as you can see on the screen. Mm-hmm. And it's been a dream since we started. We've owned it for 10 years. It was built in 1659, and it was got some incredible history. It was moved brick by brick to the site it stands on now, overlooking the Angus Glens. Close to the beach, close to the Highlands. It's a great location. I wanted to be as close to Edinburgh as I possibly could be. So we're kind of midway between Aberdeen and Edinburgh. So yeah, we ended up opening it initially as a wedding venue. And I operated as solely a wedding venue for a couple of years until our first American clients came, and they stayed with us for 30 days. And that was a complete pivotal moment, because I just realized how much we enjoyed sort of hosting smaller groups that weren't in, out, one big event around the wedding. We still do a lot of weddings. When I say a lot, we do a select amount of weddings. We do 10 a year, normally destination weddings, smaller ones. Yes. But now the mainstay of our business are private groups, corporate groups, who want to just sort of escape and be very discreet, very private. It's nothing like a hotel. As you saw today, it's all about, who are you? What do you want from your trip to Scotland? And how can we make it all happen?
It's actually very convenient to get to. You jump on the train in downtown Edinburgh and you stay on it until you get to a little town right after Dundee. And from that little town, you're just a few minutes drive to a very private location. which is kind of among lots of farmland, which I imagine many decades ago, maybe even centuries ago, was probably controlled by the earl or whoever owned or controlled the castle. And they had probably all sorts of arrangements with the farmers who were farming on their land and producing for them. I mean, there's a rich history because it goes back to the 1600s. And you got one of the sort of cozier castles, because I expected to go into something that was very cold, and in fact it really feels like a very modern home, and it's got all the modern amenities to it, because I've been in some castles before, and I have to say you've really polished it in a way that's quite modern. And of course you have Starlink and fast internet and all the amenities, so it's not like anyone's going to feel like they're in kind of some old-fashioned castle. They're actually in a very modern facility, but inside of a castle.
Absolutely. I've tried to keep respectful of the history of the castle, but also it's got to be comfortable in this day and age. And I'd like to say we're probably the coziest castle in Scotland. I'd love to take that title, both for warmth of welcome and for just being there. And as I said earlier today, it takes guests just a minute to adapt to who we are and what we offer at Turin, because there's not an easy way to describe it until you're in it. I hope you agree that we love to sort of adapt to who's there. Pivot's my favorite word. Surprise, my second favorite. If we can do something that's not an upsell to the client, but a little bit of a surprise, it's so easy because the castle it's unending. You turn a corner and there's something you hadn't seen before. We can surprise people every single night because they can dine in a different space, but they don't know that's going to happen until they've checked in. So this is all little secrets that we keep until people arrive. And when you talk about corporate retreats, if you want to get away from the world and be private, and as you know, it's a pin drop to find us. We have no signage. It's the perfect place. We land helicopters right on the lawn. No one knows you're here. We're surrounded by 20 acres of literally the hugest trees and farmland. The land originally was gifted to the Oliphant clan by King Robert the Bruce. Back in the day when it was owned, the Oliphant clan owned thousands and thousands of acres. And Robert the Bruce gifted the land of, as it was known back then, Turingus, to the Oliphant family for fighting against the English back in the day. So it was a gift originally. This used to be known as the royal part of Scotland because the Queen's mother owned her own family castle is only 20 minutes from Turin. You can't stay there, but you can go visit. So it's a rich history, Angus, and actually quite undersold and unknown, basically. It's a private area of Scotland. So it's a great getaway.
And it's so dark at night that you see all the stars. I mean, you might as well have an observatory, because you have like no lights at all. And so for people who are stargazers, particularly this time of year, because the weather has been good and the skies have been clear. So it's quite an amazing property. And of course, it's immensely quiet because you're really not near anything. And I didn't even detect any flight path because obviously Aberdeen has an airport and Dundee, I think, has an airport as well, right?
Yeah.
And so you've got just the most quiet place. And I kept thinking to myself, well, if Elon Musk ever got married, he probably would want to have the wedding at your castle, and he would take it over with 100 of his best friends, I'm sure, because they would have total solitude and total privacy there.
Absolutely. Well, if you can give him a call and just tell him we're available, that would be perfect. I think Starlink will help us, right?
Well, I have to say, it's a very interesting thing that you can get work done almost anywhere in the world, and that includes, of course, your castle, because you did install Starlink, and I can attest that it works, and it works really quickly. And you're really kind of in a place that's more than 400 years old, and
Absolutely.
yet at the same time, it can operate at the speed of modern commerce. And so corporate retreat could easily have a group of executives there that fundamentally could be doing a lot of work at the same time. And I kept thinking of that film or the miniseries called Succession, where Brian Cox is the Scottish person who I think is actually Scottish in real life, right? I think he is.
He was born and brought up only 25 minutes from here. This is his hometown. This is his stomping ground. So, yeah.
Because you actually have meeting rooms and conference rooms that would allow people to kind of carry out. I mean, it'd be easy to have a series of executive seminars and training for people who wanted to do it. So what is it like actually running an operation like this? Because I imagine you have to be a great project manager to manage so many things at the same time. I mean, what is that like? How do you do it? Because you have to have a lot of people, I would assume, to make this all work.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, you need a sense of humor because there are some wild and wonderful things happen when you own a castle, repair wise. So behind the scenes, you need a team, and we've got some great people. It's been 10 years since I started business, and without the team that we've pulled together, obviously none of it would be possible. And everybody works long hours. Our guests kind of stay up late to enjoy the castle. But, if something goes wrong, the type of guests that we have, it's got to get fixed. It doesn't matter if it's 2 a.m. So we always tell our electrician, everyone else, if you see our number, please pick up the phone. And they do finally understand what we're trying to deliver here. So it's been a journey. I'm not going to say it's been easy. It is blood, sweat, and tears to own a castle, to be honest. But it's worth it. My job is I just love people. And I love to see to stir emotions in people. And Scotland does that anyway. I love the saying, you had me at hello. Scotland has everyone at hello because of the greenery, the warm welcome that you get from the country, which I think you'll agree anyway. And we all forget that people come from all walks of life, and to have greenery around you and history wrapping around you is half of the battle when you want to have an experience in Scotland. So nature does most of the job for me because we're surrounded by beautiful woodlands and scenery and mountains and close to beaches. So it's all worth it. It's been a joy to run, an absolute privilege to be part of history.
You're also near various golf courses, right? Because you're not far from St. Andrews.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, we're I call it the golf trail. We've got 100 golf courses within an hour. Two of which, well, more than two, but the big ones, the big names, St. Andrews Old Course is only 50 minutes from us. Carnoustie is on our doorstep. We're all golfers here. We've got a little golf course in the gardens, which is a great warm-up course for people that are coming over to stay and want to play some of the great links courses around us. So we have a 6-hole course in the garden. Alex, who's part of the team, he's a very keen golfer, so assists everyone with booking golf, etc. So yeah, I mean, we had 2 guys from Japan that came and they played 36 holes every single day for 2 weeks and flew back to Japan.
I mean, you are basically in the center of the most beautiful part of Scotland, and with a beautiful facility and a great set of staff that are very capable of doing so many things. I mean, I have to say, I envy the fact that you're able to do this, but at the same time, I sort of wonder, is it just so much work to do? Like, it's an amazing amount of work that you have to do to make this all work. Because I know I once, many years ago, talked to a wedding planner about the business of being a wedding planner, and she told me, boy, it can be hell trying to make sure all the logistics work for a wedding or for any event planner has to be involved in making sure all the details work out. And it's a lot of details.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think it helps that I love chaos. I love a challenge. And I like to be away from normal. And I've ticked every single box by taking this on for sure, because you never know who's going to come through the door. I mean, we've had some celebrity clients, we've had some clients who never want to be found, don't want anyone to know where they are. We've had surprise clients. I had a family from the Middle East that literally drove up to the front door and asked to check in. And I said, no, we outsource our staff. We've got a really curated team that we work with. But I said, if you give me 4 hours and come back, I can have everything ready for you. And they came back and they stayed for 3 weeks. This was at the start of my journey. And they booked in for 2 nights and they liked it so much, they kept extending. And after 3 weeks, I had to say, well, you have to leave now because everyone's exhausted. I think they would have stayed for 6 months because they just kept saying, call Emirates Airlines and tell them we come tomorrow. And they did it. They did it every single day for 3 weeks. And because I kind of was newly opened, I had availability, obviously, and I kept saying yes. So that was a steep learning curve because they were a fabulous group of people, but very, very not demanding. They just kept us very, very busy and wanted to experience unusual things. And one of the things they wanted to do was eat dinner in the rain. So, which is kind of an unusual request, but it's not unusual when you live in the desert. I mean, we lived in Dubai previously, and I kind of understood them. So we moved our dining table into the garden and served them a 7-course dinner in the rain. Literally, wow. The heavens opened. It's Scotland, after all. God waters this frequently. Mm-hmm. So they sat in the garden with pouring rain all over their food, in their drinks, everything, and they loved it. It was the highlight of their trip. So who knows?
Well, the other thing that people don't realize, that you have 10 years of actual operations under your belt, and yeah. you know all the other castles in the area, and you know the ones that are getting ready to be sold or the ones where the owners are thinking about selling. And so I don't think you're officially a real estate broker or a solicitor that does real estate deals, but you are actually the person. If someone wants to get a castle in Scotland, you are the go-to person to call because you really know the properties that are in the area.
Absolutely. I mean, pretty much all over Scotland. I've sourced. It wasn't something I meant to do, but after people stay at Turin, they always fall in love with Scotland and think, oh, I'd kind of like to have my own castle. So I've sourced properties for 3 clients already, just because I loved my journey of finding the dream property, and I like to kind of matchmake. I do know Scotland, and because of what I've done for 10 years, We all talk to each other because we try to help each other a little bit, all the castle owners, because it is a challenge. There's no doubt about that. To handle such a piece of history, it comes with various challenges, and it's always good to network with like-minded people. So there's lots of things on the market that may be under the radar or difficult to find. So yeah, it's a little, I call it a side hustle, and I'm happy to help out if someone's looking to invest in Scotland.
I mean, these days, are there actual brokers that are around that do deals where they're the go-to people that just know all the various castles, or is it more like you have to know someone like you who actually knows the owners?
Yeah, I think it's easier. I'm not going to say I'm not a real estate agent. I'm coming from the other side, but we work with some of the real estate agents, and they give us, now that they know I've done some transactions, they will give me some information before it hits the market, basically. But it's so much better to go direct to the owner because, and also, over 10 years of looking myself, I looked for, as I say, a year and a half. Some of the properties I looked at, are now coming back on the market. Sometimes they change hands pretty quickly. But yeah, it's a journey, and it's kind of a very cool club to be in to own something like Turin. It's a real privilege, but as I say, also a challenge.
There's lots of different rooms because you've got a whiskey room and you've got a wine room and you've got a billiards room and you've got a library and you've got several board rooms and you've got a dance floor and you've got almost an auditorium. I mean, every inch of the property is steeped in sort of an individual experience. And I think you could have like 10 or 12 groups in that building, and they wouldn't necessarily run into each other, and they could each operate. I'm sure you never do it that way, but if you had a big family and you wanted to do a family retreat, and there are family offices that do have big families, and they often do want to do family retreats. And I do think that this would be the ideal place because different family members could meet in so many different areas because you've got so many different indoor as well as outdoor areas. So it's quite impressive.
Thank you. Well, we've done quite a few multi-generational bookings. In fact, we're kind of ideal for that. We had a group from actually San Francisco who came with their 11-year-old daughters who all went to school together. And they absolutely loved Turin because the girls could be in a completely different wing and have a different experience. The parents felt like they were out without their children, but the girls were still within the castle. Maybe they're even listening to this story. They'll remember as well. And we did sleepovers in the Tartan courtyard and stargazing for the girls overnight because they were safely locked in the castle, yet their parents didn't see them and they didn't have to see their parents. And they had quite a few adventures. They were camping in the gardens. But also we have our event space, which seats up to 100 people. So at Christmas and New Year, we do a huge event, usually for families. And every year we're booked out quite well in advance. And we do a huge show at New Year's Eve. Scotland celebrates New Year's Eve almost as much as Christmas. So we have a huge lawn at the front that we bring bagpipers, almost do a mini tattoo that's private to the client. We've got fireworks. We bring harpists in, storytellers, fire eaters. This year we were going to do an ice rink in the gardens. So it's just the world's your oyster at Turin. We can bring whatever into the property to make it special and sort of, it's like unpeeling an onion. It's just another layer because sometimes we don't even tell guests initially that we've got the event space. And then on the final night, we open this door and voila, there's a ceilidh band, a dance floor, and lots of fun and shenanigans can be had on the dance floor. And no one even knew when they checked in that we had that. But also, for corporate and for gatherings, as I say, we can handle 100 people in that area alone.
So Yvonne, tell people how they would reach you, because I think you're very discreet and it's not like your phone number is in some sort of directory. So how would they actually get to you? By email, or is there a website for?
It's just we're on Instagram. We're Turin Castle Scotland, because very strangely there's a Turin Castle in Ireland, not related. So we're Turin Castle Scotland, and all our details are on there. We are maybe too discreet, but we prefer word of mouth. As soon as you contact us, we love to have a Zoom and meet you in person. I tend not to do so much by email. We'll answer emails, but before you come, we love to meet people and get to know them just a little bit, so we can create something completely unique. We've got some amazing partners in Scotland that will handle big events for us. Obviously, we can't do everything. So we've got some superb partners based in Edinburgh that we work with. In fact, we're all off to Marrakesh together to meet concierge companies, to meet at a big global meeting place where it's essentially family office, PAs, concierge companies for private families, and we all come together and meet at that event. So we do a lot of business there. Again, very discreet. I don't believe in signage. I prefer we share a pin drop with our guests once they're booked, and it just guides them straight in.
Well, congratulations on what you've accomplished, because it's a beautiful property. I understand you had to do a lot of work to get there, because when you bought it, it was pretty run down. It's a story within a story within a story that I'm sure you'll tell at some point publicly.
Absolutely.
Of who previously had it and what it was like when you first made your way into it. But you've turned it into a beautiful 5-star location. And I do think eventually you'll see some of the Silicon Valley billionaires contact you, and maybe their family offices as well, because I do think eventually you'll have lunch with someone from the Financial Times and tell the story in that beautiful newspaper, and I'm sure you'll get a lot of interesting people that'll want to come, and we certainly want to come again, and we'll make arrangements to do that. So thank you very much, Yvonne, for spending time, and I look forward to seeing you again. Take care.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thanks for your time.
Sure. Bye-bye. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye. Bye.
Tune in next time on The Valley Current.